The sun was a white-hot hammer, beating the life out of the Wyoming plains. Silas Thorne felt the crushing weight of the world on his shoulders. His daughter, May, was a small, heavy bundle pressed against his aching back. She was only 4 years old. Her breath was shallow and jagged. Her skin felt like a branding iron against the nape of his neck. Silas had been walking for 3 agonizing days. His boots were worn through. Every step tore at the raw skin beneath them. He squinted at the horizon, searching for a miracle. The year was 1888. The great die-up of the previous winter had been a massacre. Millions of cattle had perished in the suffocating snow. Silas was a man who had been stripped of everything. He had lost his farm in Nebraska to the black clouds of locusts. He had lost his beloved wife, Sarah, to the relentless grip of the fever. All he had left was May. She was his heartbeat, his only reason to take the next step. In the shimmering distance, a small ranch house flickered like a mirage. A woman stood there, perfectly still. She wore a blue dress that matched the terrifying vastness of the sky. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest. She watched his staggered approach with eyes as hard as flint. Silas stopped at the very edge of the dust-choked yard. He did not want to scare her. A man with nothing is often seen as a man who will take anything. He reached up with a trembling hand and tipped his sweat-stained hat. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he croaked. His voice sounded like rusted hinges grinding together in the wind. The woman did not move a single muscle. She scanned the man before her. He was a ghost, draped in the grime of 1,000 miles. She looked at the small, limp girl strapped to his back. May's eyes were tightly shut. Her tiny, pale hand gripped the frayed collar of Silas's shirt. "You're a long way from nowhere, stranger," the woman said. Her voice was steady and sharp. It held the granite strength of a woman who survived on her own terms. "I'm looking for honest work," Silas said, his legs shaking. He took one agonizing step forward. "I can mend any fence the wind can knock down. I can break the wildest horses you've got. I can do anything you need, ma'am." He paused, his throat closing up as he looked at his daughter. "I don't need much in the way of coin. Just a corner for my girl to rest her head, and a bit of milk to keep the life in her." The woman stared at him, searching for the truth in his eyes. She looked at his hands, calloused and bloody from the journey. She noticed the way he shifted his weight to shield the child from the sun. A heavy silence stretched between them, thick as the heat. The wind whistled through the dry, dying buffalo grass. It was the loneliest sound a man could ever hear. "My name is Clara Higgins," she finally whispered. Silas nodded, a flicker of hope sparking in his chest. "Silas Thorne, ma'am, from Nebraska." Clara stepped off the porch, her movements graceful yet weary. She walked toward him, the dust swirling around her hem. She didn't look at Silas's desperate face. She looked directly at the child. May opened her eyes, just a sliver. They were dark, clouded by the heat of the fever. They were filled with a terrible wisdom that no 4-year-old should possess. Clara reached out a trembling hand. She touched May's forehead with the back of her fingers. "She is burning up," Clara whispered, her voice finally softening. "Yes," Silas said, his heart twisting like a knotted rope. "She's been fading since we left the last watering hole." Clara looked back at Silas. Her expression was a mask of unreadable iron. "I don't need a ranch hand," she said coldly. Silas felt his stomach drop into a bottomless pit. His knees buckled, and the world began to spin. He started to turn back toward the empty horizon. "Wait," Clara called out, the word cutting through the air. He stopped, his breath hitching in his chest. She looked him square in the eye, her gaze piercing his soul. I don't need a man to fix my fences, Silas Thorne, but I have a requirement. A price for the milk and the bed. Silas waited, his pulse drumming in his ears. He was ready to sell his soul to save his child. I want a daughter, Clara said, her voice cracking for the first time. The words hit Silas with the force of a physical blow. He gripped the leather straps of May's carrier until his knuckles turned white. "Ma'am?" he asked, his mind reeling. He prayed he had misheard the madness in her voice. "You heard me," Clara said, her chin lifting in defiance. "I want a daughter to fill this empty house."
Not to replace what you've lost. Never that. I only want to love her as if she were my own. If you stay here, that is the cost of your survival. Silas felt a surge of primal fear. Was she trying to buy his flesh and blood? Was this the cruelty of the West finally claiming his last treasure? "I won't give her up," Silas growled, his voice low and dangerous. His protective instincts flared like a wildfire. "I'm not asking you to give her up, you fool," Clara said. She looked back at the hollow, silent ranch house. "I'm asking for a family. I'm asking for a reason to draw breath in the morning. The winter of '87 took my husband, Ben. It took my hope and buried it under 10 feet of ice. It took the children we dreamed of but never held." She stepped closer, her eyes brimming with a sudden, sharp pain. "You want a job and a life. I want a daughter to love and a legacy to keep. You stay here. You work this land until your hands bleed into the soil. But you let her be mine, too." Silas was in a state of profound shock. He searched the woman's face for any sign of malice. He saw only a deep, aching loneliness that mirrored his own. It was the shared language of the broken. "She needs medicine, Clara," Silas said, using her name for the first time. "I have herbs and willow bark in the pantry," she replied. "And I have a feather bed that hasn't been slept in for a year." Silas looked down at May. The girl's face was flushed a terrifying shade of crimson. He had no choices left. "All right," Silas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We stay. She is yours to love." Clara didn't smile, but the tension left her shoulders. "Bring her inside, quickly," she commanded. The house smelled of cedar, beeswax, and dried lavender. It was clean, quiet, and felt like a sanctuary. Clara led them to a small, sun-drenched bedroom. The bed was covered in a magnificent, handmade quilt. It was a mosaic of colorful scraps, stitched with love and patience. Silas gently lowered May onto the soft mattress. The child groaned, a small, pained sound that broke his heart. Clara was already moving with purposeful grace. She brought a basin of cool, clear spring water. She began to bathe May's face with a linen cloth. Her movements were incredibly tender. They were the ancient movements of a mother tending to her own. Silas stood in the doorway, feeling like a ragged intruder. He was a man of the trail, a creature of dirt and sweat. This room was a holy place, and he was covered in the world's filth.